The Spanish Grand Prix was meant to be another chapter in Oscar Piastri's remarkable rise, a flawless drive to victory as McLaren tightened their grip on the Constructors Championship. But while the headlines were being printed for Piastri's 5th win of the season, the real drama was exploding a few places behind him. Because in the final laps of the race, under the hot Barcelona sun, Max Verstappen, 4-time world champion and relentless racer, crossed a line, and the stewards didn't hesitate to respond. As the dust settles, Verstappen finds himself with a stinging 10-second penalty, falling from P5 to P10, and at the centre of yet another fierce storm involving Mercedes' George Russell. It wasn't just a racing incident, it was a moment of rebellion, frustration, and perhaps psychological breaking point. But how did it come to this? Why did Verstappen defy his own team? And what does it say about Red Bull's internal chaos? If you're a true F1 fan, you need to hear this story in full. So don't forget to subscribe, because what's coming next might just be the spark that reignites the title fight. Let's break it down. To fully grasp what happened between Max Verstappen and George Russell in the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix, we need to zoom out, because this wasn't just about a clumsy lunge or a heat-of-the-moment mistake. This was about pressure, frustration, and a Red Bull team that, for the first time in years, is visibly unravelling. Let's set the scene. Lap 60, 5 laps to go. A sudden incident. Kimi Antonelli loses control of his Mercedes at turn 10 and finds himself buried in the gravel. The safety car is deployed, triggering a high-stakes game of pit lane roulette. All the front runners dive into the pits for fresh, soft tyres. Everyone except Max Verstappen. Why? Red Bull had no softs left. Verstappen was handed a set of worn hard tyres, the only compound available to him. And with that, he re-entered the race on a compound that was going to put him at a major disadvantage, especially against the charging McLarens, Ferraris and Mercedes behind. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc and George Russell, each one on softs, each one gunning for maximum points in what's become an unpredictable and intensely competitive championship. Verstappen, meanwhile, is now a sitting duck in P3, clinging to position more with willpower than with grip. The race resumes on lap 61. Instantly, Leclerc lunges at Verstappen into turn 1 and makes the move stick to take third. But Russell is right behind. With soft tyres and DRS assistance, the Mercedes driver goes for a move as well. Verstappen defends aggressively, runs wide off the track, and rejoins ahead of Russell in a manoeuvre that, while familiar in Verstappen's playbook, was clearly illegal by the letter of the rule book. The stewards take notice, Red Bull takes notice, and crucially, Verstappen's own race engineer, Giampiero Lambiase, takes notice. Over the radio, Lambiase calmly but firmly gives the instruction: Max, let Russell through. It's not a suggestion, it's an order. And in that moment, you could almost feel Verstappen's fury boiling over. To Verstappen, this was unjust. He had fought tooth and nail for track position, only to be told by his own garage to hand it back. But this wasn't about pride, it was about protocol. And Red Bull knew the stewards were watching closely. They wanted to avoid a time penalty. They wanted a clean slate. Verstappen didn't. As they approached turn 5, Max appeared to yield. He slowed down on the racing line. Russell went for the move on the inside, assuming Verstappen was playing ball. And then, bang! At the apex of the corner, Verstappen turned in, ever so slightly but ever so deliberately, clipping the side of Russell's car in what can only be described as a protest move. There was no major damage, no retirements. Both drivers continued. But everyone watching knew exactly what had just happened. It wasn't a racing incident. It was symbolic, a message. Russell's response over the radio was immediate and unfiltered. What the fuck was that? It was the raw, stunned reaction of a driver who felt blindsided, perhaps even endangered, by a rival many consider to be the most ruthlessly clinical in the sport. And Verstappen? He eventually conceded the place, but the damage had already been done, not to the car, but to his race, his reputation, and perhaps his standing within the team. Minutes later, the stewards handed down the verdict, a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision. As the checkered flag waved and Piastri crossed the line to win his 5th Grand Prix of the year, Verstappen was classified in P10, a painful 7-place drop that not only cost him points, but also threw his season trajectory into serious question. So what does this all mean? Firstly, this incident didn't happen in isolation. It's part of a broader narrative, one where Red Bull is no longer the dominant force, and Verstappen is no longer racing from the front. Since the early flyaway rounds, McLaren have steadily gained the upper hand. Oscar Piastri's consistency has been nothing short of world champion level. Lando Norris has backed that up with ferocity. Even Ferrari and Mercedes are in the mix, meaning the once invincible Red Bull team now finds itself fighting tooth and nail for scraps. And Verstappen doesn't do scraps. He's used to leading from the front, used to winning, used to dictating the terms of engagement. But 2025 is a different battlefield. And when the pressure's on, we're starting to see cracks, not just in the Red Bull strategy, but in Max himself. This isn't the first time Verstappen has bristled against team orders, but this was different. This wasn't just ignoring a strategy call or disagreeing on tyre choices. This was physical defiance, an act of rebellion that risked contact, risked penalty, and risked damaging trust with his engineers. Which begs the question, is Verstappen beginning to lose faith in Red Bull? Some paddock whispers suggest a growing tension behind the scenes. Adrian Newey's departure earlier in the season was a massive blow. The car hasn't responded to upgrades the way they'd hoped. Strategy decisions have been questionable, and Yuki Tsunoda, Verstappen's teammate, has been a non-factor, off the pace and offering little in terms of a rearguard fight. Max, therefore, finds himself isolated, outnumbered, outgunned, and now under investigation. Sky Sports analyst Nico Rosberg didn't mince words post-race, calling the move completely unacceptable and even suggesting Verstappen should have seen a black flag, a disqualification. That's a serious allegation, but it's a reflection of how far this incident has reached. It's not just a scuffle between two rivals. It's a flashpoint moment in a season where tensions are reaching boiling point across the grid. In that sense, the real winners of this Verstappen-Russell clash may not be Mercedes, but McLaren. So what do you think? Was Verstappen's move a moment of madness or a calculated act of desperation? And more importantly, can Red Bull hold itself together, or are we witnessing the first cracks of a coming collapse? Let me know in the comments, and buckle up, because the 2025 season is far from over.